Welcome to the Bird Burger Podcast. Today, I'm honored to be joined here by Evan Watts, who has recently been making some huge waves in the YouTube community with his journeys documenting wildlife in Yellowstone, and who I recently had the pleasure of doing a collaboration with. Evan, so to my dismay, you recently captured a record-breaking moment with the grizzly bear that broke national news, shocked biologists all around the world, and I was just but a few miles away from you when this all happened, and I couldn't believe the situation. But can you tell me a little more about that moment and how huge that was, maybe for you, but also for the wildlife photography community as a whole in Yellowstone?
For sure. So for me personally, that moment was such a huge moment because 399 is one of the reasons that I kept coming back to Yellowstone. I came on this vacation in 2020 and looked for her for 5 days with her 4 new cubs. She had these 4 cubs that spring and missed her every single day. So I'm like, okay, well, next summer I'm going to come back to Yellowstone. I'm going to work here and I'm going to see 399. So I did next summer. And I had these incredible moments with her that summer. I got to see her and her 4 cubs multiple times. I watched them eat an elk calf and got to film that. My first quote unquote viral video on my channel was them eating that elk calf. So that was a big deal for me. But I've still never seen her with a new cub, like a fresh new cub coming out of the den. So to be able to see that happen this spring, not only just see her with the new cub, but watch the moment she came out for the first time ever in the public eye. And to see her set that record, as someone who is got a wildlife biology degree and is so interested in bears and bear biology, to watch a new record in bear biology be set was just a really cool moment. So for me, that was amazing. And then the photo that I got there was just probably my favorite photo I've ever taken. So that was obviously a very special moment for me too, to be able to get that photo. And in the world of Yellowstone in general, I mean, everyone has a very similar sentiment. She has broken record after record. She was the first bear to ever get 4 cubs to adulthood. She was the only bear, above the age of 24 to come out with 4 cubs. She has one of the highest success rates ever documented for raising cubs, and now she's the oldest bear to ever have a cub. So it's just another record for this bear that so many of us here in Yellowstone like to watch. So definitely a very cool moment for everyone.
Yeah, that is super cool. Yeah, it's almost like it was maybe accumulation of like 3-4 years probably of what it felt like of work for you, kind of coming to this moment of like, oh my goodness, like I am witnessing history here. And that just must be so special, especially with the backstory that you have and how that kind of is your inspiration and motivation for all of that. And so that is really, really awesome. What I find really interesting about kind of like you, but also the whole like Yellowstone community, is that it's like this whole different world over there. Before I had been there, like I've been to a decent amount of places to do some wildlife photography, almost all bird photography. But in Yellowstone, it's like its own culture, and it's like I've never been to a place that's so dedicated to wildlife photographers. And so it's really interesting to me. It fascinates me. What I find interesting about what you do is that you really focus exclusively on Yellowstone content almost. What is it that you find and kind of fall in love with Yellowstone about, and what is it that keeps pulling you back to Yellowstone?
So for me, Yellowstone, well, not just for me, just in general, Yellowstone is the really last place in the lower 48 where we have this very intact, untouched ecosystem with all the large megafauna that was originally there before European settlement. And for me, I love birds. I love birds too, don't get me wrong, but the large mammals are like my primary focus. So it was kind of a no-brainer for where I would want to be. Wherever the densest concentration of those mammals are and you can watch them interact and have the best opportunity to see and photograph those animals, that's where I want to be. And I'd come, like I said, on vacations to Yellowstone before, and it was the park that impressed me the most. So that's, for me, what brought me here. And I think it's the same case for a lot of those other people that are in this Yellowstone community. It's just the draw to be able to see and experience this last intact ecosystem in the country.
Yeah, it kind of feels like when I was there, it felt like America's version of a safari, you know? Like on a safari, you see all the larger animals, and you see kind of this like ecosystem working with each other, and just all the different, you know, tiers and the food pyramid and all the things over there. But in America, we don't have much of that left that feels so wholesome as that spot over there in Wyoming. So that's awesome.
A lot of people actually call the Lamar Valley, which we spent a good portion of our first collaboration video in, America's Serengeti. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That explains it. Yeah, we recently got a chance to collab on our channels, which was pretty awesome. Something I appreciate about you, and why I decided to kind of reach out to you to ask if you wanted to collaborate a couple months ago, is that you're very story focused on your content. A lot of wildlife photographers just kind of capture whatever comes and don't give much thought into the story development or the final product of their content. But working with you felt like we were kind of on the same wavelength in crafting the story and really focusing on producing the best content possible, as well as images, right? Do you ever find yourself more interested in the telling of the story of wildlife through film rather than simply the photograph itself? Or where do you land on that?
I'm very in the middle on that. I love photography. I love telling the story with the photo and capturing a moment in time. But at the same time, especially as I've gotten more and more into doing YouTube, I love storytelling too. And I love thinking about how I can piece together the wildlife encounters I've had to tell the story that I want to tell with that video, or to tell the story of a specific animal in that video. So for me, I'm really middle of the road on that. I love the storytelling aspect, and I love filming the wildlife and creating a short film about, you know, what's going on in this Yellowstone ecosystem and my experience here. But I also love capturing that moment in time with the photos. So I think for both mine and your videos, we're both very story driven, but still take a lot of photos. So I think we both capture the best of both of those worlds in what we make, which I like to do. So
yeah, I love that. What are some of the key differences, in your opinion, between wildlife photography and wildlife videography, and what do you kind of appreciate about each of those art forms?
So wildlife photography, I would say, is more difficult than videography when it comes to storytelling, because with a video, you can just film what's happening and tell the story, right? As long as you're getting a variety of different shots, wide shots, tight shots, all that kind of stuff. And you have to be good at telling stories. But you can do it with video easier than you can do it with a photo. With a photo, you have to capture that one moment, that pose of the animal, the environment around the animal, whatever it is, with just one frame, and tell the same story that you would tell with an entire video or video clip.
Yeah.
So that's what I appreciate about photography itself, is it's a lot more difficult to tell that story, but oftentimes can be more powerful because it's just in this one frame you're telling a whole story. What I love about videography and wildlife videography is that, you know, sometimes you just can't tell the story very effectively with a wildlife photo. Let's say you've got, for example, here in Yellowstone, wolves attacking a bison. Not that you can't get great photos of that and tell a cool story with that, but capturing the entire hunt, the chase, the actual attacking of the bison, and then finally bringing it down and consuming it tells a lot better story than just one photo. So with video, I think you can tell a larger story, but with photo, I think if you do it correctly, you can tell a more impactful story.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So something that someone shared with me once, I was in a meeting with a couple other YouTubers, and one of them was Hugh Brownstone, and he mentioned something about his belief was that you can't tell a story with a photo because a story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in a photo, by definition, you're capturing a single frame and moment in time. Do you feel like that's maybe a too simplified of a view, or maybe an incorrect view of what a story could be in a photograph? Or like what a photograph could be. In other words, it could be a story. Or, yeah, what are kind of your thoughts about that? I guess that concept.
I think it's an interesting thought. I don't think it's an incorrect thought. I really think it's a matter of opinion, what you view a story as, and what you think can tell a story. But to me, I feel like a photo can tell a story. I don't feel like it has to have a beginning, middle, and end. I think that even just the middle part of a story can technically be a story in of itself. So, I mean, it's a good thought, and I won't say it's correct. I think it's a matter of opinion, but I do think a photo can tell a story. That's my opinion, at least.
Thanks for sharing that. At the time of releasing this video, we still have 2 weeks remaining for the 2023 Bird Burger Photo Competition for people to submit their images. For those who don't know, it's a competition that I host annually. We're giving away almost $5,000 worth of prizes, including, once again, a $1,000 grand prize this year. What makes this event really unique is that it's the only wildlife photography competition in the world judged live in real time. So it's incredibly exciting and insightful. And last year you got to be on as a judge. Unfortunately, this year you won't be able to. But from your perspective, what do you think the value is in a competition like this? And what do you think it brings to the wildlife photography community that we have here online and on YouTube?
So I think the value in this is it creates a sense of community in the wildlife photography community. So we have a wildlife photography YouTube community, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're all connected and we're all talking and everything. But something like this brings that into effect. We are all connected. We are all talking. You have different judges on there. You're all meeting on there together and judging these photos. And so I think it brings a greater sense of community to that wildlife photography YouTube community. And I do just want to say huge props to you, Jeremy, for putting this on. I mean, I've seen a little bit of the behind the scenes being a judge last year, and the amount of effort and stuff that you've put into this is immense, and it's amazing. So props for putting this competition on. It's definitely a really incredible opportunity. And I think it's really unique in the wildlife photography community, on YouTube at least. There hasn't really been anything like this, like a photo competition on YouTube. So I think that it's a really unique idea and a great idea, and I can't wait to see how it continues to progress over the years. Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes I feel like I struggle with the disconnect that I have as a creator from my audience, because it's me putting out content and my audience consuming it, watching it, and maybe giving me a little bit of feedback, but it's, at most just a few comments here and there, maybe a couple, encouraging messages, emails, whatever it may be. But it's rare that I really get involved in my audience's journey of their journey rather than my own journey. And I love getting to see people's images being submitted, kind of getting to know them as photographers as well. And so, it's really cool. And I think the coolest part about last year to me that I did not expect even close to this type of engagement and participation was just how people were encouraging and talking with one another. Was very cool to see. I loved that. And even after the competition, I hosted a recap where I went through literally every single image from the competition. It was exhausting. I went through I think it was 3 hours worth of just images, just click, 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 and just commenting on each one, talking about what I liked about each one. And there were so many people that tuned in live, even just to watch that and just to encourage one another. And that was pretty amazing. That was really cool to see. So I am very excited again for this year's, and excited to see what comes of it. So for those who are interested and want to try to enter the event, I'll leave a link in the description below, and you can check it out there, see the launch video, see our competition website if you want to enter it and hopefully win as well. So, I know you this year will be entering it yourself since you are not a judge.
I did. Actually, I already entered. So, I'm really excited to see how that all pans out, and, hopefully I'll place in something.
Yep.
But it'll be cool to see it both now from the judge perspective and from participants' perspective. So.
Yeah, it'll be unique. Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I think that YouTube is a really special place, and I've really come to fall in love with this platform and kind of the community that I've been able to build here, do things like this competition. However, I don't know what it's been like for you, but for me, there's definitely been some hard parts or low moments as well. how has the YouTube journey been for you throughout the years? How many years are you going on? 2-3 years of doing it? Can't remember.
3 years now. I put out some videos in 2020 that were awful, and they weren't related to photography. I started the photography stuff in 2021.
Okay.
So I guess 2.5 full years of like photography content, 3 full years of YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's been, ups and downs. Like you said, it can get difficult. Sometimes you put out a video and it just kind of flops. It doesn't do at all how you expect it. And you put hours and hours into this and people just aren't watching it. But overall, I will say that the YouTube community has been overwhelmingly supportive and great. And the people that watch my videos are amazing. All the comments I get are amazing and very supportive. And it's been a great journey so far. Like I said, there have been slow points. But for the most part, it's been high points, and it's been positive things.
Yeah, it's been very cool to watch you like continue to go and grow, and you're doing amazing stuff. What does it mean for you to be a successful wildlife photography content creator? Because I think there's a lot of people that may be an aspiration for them, especially probably the younger generations. What does that mean to you to be successful?
To be successful, to me, means that you're putting out videos that are consistently satisfying your audience and that makes them want to come back to watch another video. I want to put out videos, not that, they get me tons of views and clickbait and like whatever, etc. I don't want to put out videos like that. I want to put out videos that my audience clicks on it, watches it, and is like, wow, that was really entertaining. That was a great use of my 17 minutes or 25 minutes or however long the video is. And they come back for the next video because of that, because they really did enjoy the content and are happy with what they got out of it. So to me, being a successful wildlife photography content creator is the same as really being any content creator. You have to provide value to your viewers. You have to give them something that they enjoyed watching and that they want to come back for more. That's success in my mind. You don't have to be making money at it. You don't have to be a professional full-time YouTuber. But if you're doing that, if you're making people happy and they're enjoying your videos, that's success in my mind.
What's your relationship with I'll just leave this as a broad question. What's your relationship with the algorithm then? So the algorithm,
I try not to watch it too closely. I try not to look into it too closely, but I do look into it some. So there is definitely some of that in my thumbnails and in my titles, trying to game the algorithm, so to speak. Specifically, a lot of my recent titles have started with I spent or I photographed or whatever. I found success with titles that start like that in the algorithm, and so I've stuck with that. I definitely do some things to try to game the algorithm for sure. As well as, making my videos really fast-paced, because that keeps people watching. And the more that people watch, the more YouTube pushes your video to a wider audience. So I try to cut out anything that I feel is too slow, keep it fast-paced, use those titles that I feel like are really beneficial in the algorithm, and then thumbnails that I found, if this certain thumbnail design worked really well and that video got lots of views, and the algorithm seemed to like it, then I'll design a similar thumbnail for the next video. Definitely, I try not to look into it too much and try to just let my creativity take over, but at the same time, I definitely look into that algorithm some and look into some of those analytics on each video and all that. So
yeah, I love that. And something you mentioned earlier is you mentioned value. To you defined success as providing value consistently to your audience. And I love that, because a lot of times I feel like the algorithm can get kind of a bad rep, and maybe sometimes for a good reason, right? But at the end of the day, it's there to serve people what they want. Like, ultimately, YouTube's goal is to serve people what they want. Now, sometimes you can argue that might not actually be the best for someone, but a lot of times it can be really great, and it can be the best thing for someone, and it is what someone wants. And so really what the algorithm is trying to do is trying to make sure the content you provide is valuable to someone. So I think that even it ties back into your kind of mention of value. You want to consistently be able to provide value to your audience, and the algorithm is just kind of like the targeting guidance system, trying to get you in front of the right people, trying to make sure that you're actually providing value. So when you look at like a retention graph, right, those things are indicating when people are no longer finding value in your video, right? When they're clicking out of your video or things like that. And when you start to look at it through that perspective, your attitude can kind of change from that, very pessimistic, like, screw the algorithm type of thing, to more of like questioning maybe how can I provide value in a way that my audience finds more interesting. You don't have to completely sell out to that, but it's a good concept to think about. So I just like how you kind of talked about that, and it naturally kind of, at least in my brain, it feels like it just transfers over.
No, for sure. That's a great point. They go hand in hand. If you're providing value for people, then they're going to watch longer, and the algorithm is going to like your video and promote it further. So they definitely go hand in hand and benefit each other.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of people look up to you. I'm sure that you have, you have a little bit over 15K subscribers now. So I'm sure out of those, there are some people that possibly are aspiring to be wildlife photography content creators, or at the very least, there are many that are aspiring to be better wildlife photographers. What would you say as an encouragement to those who follow you, maybe look up to you, and are wanting to get more into wildlife photography, or maybe even content creation?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, first of all, I would say don't give up on it. There are times that I felt, beat down, and I look at the photos I took and I'm like, these are horrible. Like, I thought these were great and these are horrible. Or even times that I have kind of had, I don't want to say an epiphany, but I've had a realization about the way I'm shooting things, and I've looked back at all of my photos, my entire portfolio, and been like, I don't like that about all of my photos. Those things can be really difficult to deal with as you're learning wildlife photography and getting better. But don't give up. Just keep shooting, keep learning, watch YouTube videos, watch tutorials, read about becoming a better wildlife photographer, helpful tips, or there are tons of ebooks and online articles about those kinds of things. I don't know about you, but I don't have any formal training in photography itself. It was all learned through YouTube and online resources. So the stuff is out there to learn it. So keep learning, keep using those resources, constantly try to improve. Personally, I never look at my portfolio and say, yeah, this is good enough. Like I'm good to go. I can just keep shooting like I am. No, I'm always trying to improve something about my photos. And the more you do that, the more that you put effort into improving your photography and taking the next photo being a little better than the last one, you will eventually get better. Your photography will elevate. And it will take time. It'll take a few years probably to get to a point where you're like, wow, I'm taking photos that I feel like are as good as this guy that I looked up to, or that guy I looked up to. But don't give up and keep at it, and always continue to try to elevate your photography and make every photo you take a better photo than the last one. As far as content creation, it's a very similar thing. Look at those analytics, look at that retention graph. When did people click off of your video? When is that retention tanking? If they clicked off at this one certain part, it's probably not a very interesting part of your video, just to be blunt with you. So change it. Don't do that next time. And eventually you'll get better and better and better at creating that content. Just very similar to photos. It's a matter of each video you create or each photo you create, analyze it, break it down, criticize it yourself, and then decide what can I do better next time to create a better photo or video. And eventually you will get to that point where you're taking the kind of photos or creating the kind of videos that you want to be creating. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. There was one of those things you mentioned, like habits that you have right in your past photography that now you look back and you see it, just all your photos are trash. I remember in my early days, for whatever reason, I thought it was really beautiful to crank up just the vibrance on all my greens in every shot, and also adjust the hue slider on them to very more of like a bluish tint on the greens, so they were kind of like it's hard to explain, but maybe like that, like, when you go to a forest, like a very wet, almost rainforest, but like those ferns that are just hyper green, like they look like pastel-y.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was doing on everything. And man, looking back at that, once I was realizing how bad that was, it was just like every photo disgusted me, But I think what's really cool, and I think I shared this with you when we were, talking in Yellowstone and hanging out, was is that I heard somewhere once, can't remember where it was, but I heard from somewhere that it's actually really powerful to be able to look back at your images or whatever art form you're doing and see the flaws in it and see how you can do better, because that means that you've grown. And if you can't look back and see what you could have done better in your artwork, whatever that is, it probably means you haven't grown much and you're probably pretty stagnant at the moment. So a lot of times people get defensive, like if maybe someone's trying to help them out and suggest something, like not unsolicited advice, but maybe like, let's say that I ask you for some feedback, right? And then you say some honest pieces of feedback that maybe I can grow from. And then I, get defensive about it or whatever. That really doesn't do anyone any good, because if you're prone to being defensive about it, you're not going to be able to grow. You're going to be stuck kind of in your way, kind of defensive about your art. And it just really prohibits that growth. So it's a really cool thing to be able to look back, see your stuff, notice how you've grown, and just keep compounding on that. So I love your advice there.
No, that's a great quote. I mean, when you took the photo, you didn't realize it was a problem or a flaw. So if now you can look back on it and realize that was an issue, then yeah, you definitely know you've grown, because you now realize what you were doing was wrong. So that's a really good quote. And I have a similar story with white balance. Pro tip for everyone: white balance is really important. Don't ignore it. For a while in my photography, I ignored it, and it came back to bite me in the butt. Whether you adjust it in camera or whether you do it in Lightroom afterwards, pay attention to white balance, learn how to use it properly in your photos, and I promise it will elevate your photos. It was a big problem originally for me. I looked back at all my photos for like a year, and I realized, oh crap, the white balance is horrible in all of these. When I did finally start to pay attention to white balance. So it happens to all of us. We all have those moments. And yeah, white balance is an important one that got me. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's a very common one. Colors is one of those things where like it takes a while when you get into photography. It takes quite a while to actually get your eyes like in tune with what looks good color wise. I feel like I feel like it took me a good 2 years to get to a place where like I was good at being able to recognize what white balances are good and stuff like that. So that's a tricky one. Yeah. Back to content creation. Something that I'd love to ask you about, have you ever struggled with numbers, maybe numbers in terms of subscribers, numbers just in terms of view counts? What's maybe some of your story with that, if you have one, and do you have any pieces of advice around that? I know that, you were doing good for a while on YouTube, but you really had a spike where you blew up with that one video. And so I'm kind of curious on what your relationship with numbers is as a content creator, and if you have kind of any pieces of advice to, share with anyone about that.
Yeah. So numbers, they are important, but I would encourage you not to pay too much attention to them. As far as my relationship with numbers, I will admit I'm guilty of 2021, probably when I first started doing the photography videos leading up to my first summer that I worked in Yellowstone and made content out here while working. I checked my subscribers religiously, literally every single day, sometimes more than once a day. I checked how many subscribers I had. It was just a constant thing for months on end. And I found that, it's nice, and, you enjoy getting to see that next subscriber join and everything, but it detracted my focus from improving my content. Religiously checking those numbers is, like I said, it's important. It's important to keep track of your numbers, because if you're not growing, then, something that you're doing in your videos, people aren't connecting with. So it's important to keep track of them, but they can really distract you from improving your content. So for me, the more that I focused instead on okay, let me just create the best content I can. let me see what people comment on it, if people really like it. And let me just not check my subscribers every day. Let me not worry so much about numbers. When I did that, when I made that switch and focused more on let's create good content, then let's focus on what do my numbers look like, I saw the numbers get better and better. So create the content and those numbers you're wanting will come. But if all you do is focus on numbers and how can these numbers go up more, I should just pump out more videos even if they're low quality because maybe my subscribers will go up, that doesn't pay off. Create the content and those numbers that you're looking for will always come. And I found that with specifically that video that you were talking about that really spiked and blew up. I put a lot of effort into telling, a good story with that video that progressed throughout the video. It was a really long video, almost 30 minutes, but I tried to tell a good story of the summer I spent in Yellowstone and portrayed it in a very entertaining way and just focused on making that the best video it could be. And when I did that, I saw those numbers that I wanted just shoot up. They showed up in mass because I was focusing on creating good content, creating value like we talked about earlier, rather than numbers. But with that said, numbers are important because if you're not seeing good numbers, that means something's wrong with your videos. So it's a balance of doing both. Watch your numbers, but don't watch them too religiously.
Yeah. Very confusing.
Yeah, but it is.
100%.
Sorry, I hope I explained that well, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, you did. It's just like, it's so confusing when you're in the shoes of being that person, because it's like you need to know the numbers. That way you understand the basics of like how to tell a good story or, as a measurement of like, is my content actually valuable? Is it providing value? But at the same time, if you're too, invested into it, you just totally can lose sight of the more important things, like actually really working on the content at the end of the day, or you can lose sight of yourself, your identity, and start to rest your identity, in your subscriber count or whatever, right? And so, I love that. I love the way that you phrased a lot of that. So
for sure, it can be very what's the word? It can just. Hold on, let me think for a second.
Like self-glorifying, maybe? No?
Not self-glorifying, maybe the opposite. If you're not seeing the numbers you want, it just brings you down. And you're like, why am I even doing this YouTube thing,
Yeah.
And like you said, then you lose track of why you're doing this and yourself. So yeah, definitely the content is more important than the numbers, but you have to know the numbers.
Yeah. So what's next for you in your wildlife photography? Any new types of content you're trying to create or any maybe new ways of doing things? Or have you thought very far into the future about kind of where you're going, where you're headed? What's that look like for you?
So for me, I am feeling pretty good about the format that I've got going for my videos on YouTube, and I want to stick with that. And I want to stick mainly to Yellowstone. I mean, I've always kind of planned, at least for the past few years, to move to this area permanently, so most of my content will continue to be based here. And I want to stick with that format that I have. But I do want to branch out some. I do want to travel to other locations. I'm going to Alaska next year, taking a subscriber up there. That'll be a whole different video with a little bit of a spin on it where I've got someone tagging along with me that won this giveaway. That kind of stuff. Travel to new locations. Apply my same kind of Yellowstone format to different locations like Alaska. And then I've got some cool ideas about, I don't want to give away too much, but I eventually in the long run want to create series of videos that are kind of in the format I'm using right now. So I have like one of the ideas I have, I'll just say it, top 5 species that I want to photograph in the world. And I want to do a series where I've got videos trying to achieve photographing each of those top 5 species, culminating in like my number 1 species that I most want to photograph. That's probably going to be something a little farther down the line because a lot of those are very exotic and expensive to reach. But like stuff like that, I want to do series of videos that are kind of in the wildlife photography vlog format is what I call them, all building up to one big conclusion video. And all kind of contributing to one idea or one goal that I have with my photography. Yeah,
I love that. That's really cool. I like that idea too. So I hope you're able to pursue that sometime. I have a big one on my hit list that I'm really thinking about going after next May. That's like the number one bird I want to see in all of the United States. And it's in Nevada, actually, in the Ruby Mountains. So we'll see if you happen to be free around that time. Maybe we'll have to do it together, but we'll see.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
We'll talk off camera about that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that. That's super cool. Later this month, we're releasing part 2. Actually, a week from when this video releases, we're releasing part 2 of our collaboration video in Yellowstone, and this time focusing on the Tetons and kind of wrapping up that story there. What are you most excited about in our upcoming video to give people a little tiny, I don't know, sprinkle of excitement about it, or a teaser to it, or whatever?
I think I'm most excited for some of the bear stuff that we both got. I mean, I'm biased towards bears. Everybody knows that because I love bears. But I really feel like you and I both got very different shots, even though we were shooting the same bear. And a wide variety of shots. You know, we got wide shots with sweeping mountain views. We got tight shots of the bears. We got backlit. You know, all these different angles on the bear. So I'm excited for that segment of the vlog. Kind of the climax of both of our videos was this time that we spent with one particular bear, Bonita, who was in your first Yellowstone vlog. And I'm excited for people to see, despite the fact that we were shooting side by side, how vastly different our photos are. It'll be cool. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I think it was very interesting to see that. The differences in our photos, how we told our stories, all that stuff. And I think it was kind of cool in the way of, Tron Westby, Espen Helland, Gunnar Dressler, and I don't remember the other guy's name, but they did like a collab video last year, maybe a couple months ago, up in Norway, which was really cool to see. And what I appreciated about that was seeing all their different perspectives. And I thought that was something really fun that we got to do this time. I didn't even think of that other video till now. But yeah, it's kind of like we each had, you know, we're shooting mostly side by side, but yet the stories still, our experiences were different. Like, and that's one of the cool things about wildlife photography is it's so individualistic in that sense of like you experience what you experience and it's personal. That's the word I'm looking for. It's very personal to you. And so it's kind of cool seeing that even though it's the same, you know, week for both of us, there's still value to watching both of the videos because we're each a different character and a different story, you know?
Right. And we each had our own different experience in this combined setting. So, yeah.
Including me missing the record-breaking moment that was incredibly depressing. But man, so little behind the scenes on that. Like so that was a couple days in, right? And when that moment happened, it was my birthday that day, as you know, as the audience knows if they watch the video. And so I was like, I've been going hard for 3 days straight by that point, whatever. I was like, I deserve a little birthday dinner for myself. So I was like, me and my brother went out because he was filming for us. Go out to eat at some restaurant. You stay behind. And then sure enough, 15 minutes after I left, 20 minutes after I left, that moment comes that I had been searching that whole time for. And I was just like, oh man, this is why you never leave until the sun sets in wildlife photography. But, luckily, later on, I was able to get some cool stuff. So, yeah, it's very, very cool and still plenty worthwhile the whole trip. Yeah.
You were. Yeah, you still got some incredible stuff. And you got some stuff with Bonita in this upcoming vlog that I missed out on because I was looking for more photos of 399. So
your obsession with 399, yeah.
Yeah, kind of bit me in the butt in this upcoming video. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it was still good, though. You still got good stuff, so...
Sure.
I'm excited for that. And yeah, well, thanks for coming on, man. It was really great having you. And why don't you give us an outro to wrap up this episode?
For sure. Yeah, thank you for having me on. It was great talking to you. And to everyone watching, link in the description. Enter in the 2023 Bird Burger competition. Jeremy put a lot of work into this. Trust me, if you've seen some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, he is putting so much work into it. So enter in it, help him out. And join in on the camaraderie and the community of the competition. And yeah, I think that's all. We'll see you in the Grand Tetons next week.
That was awesome. Didn't even need a teleprompter.